Supergirl is coming to a theater near you, and you will believe a cynical woman with a chip on her shoulder can be unlikable. And what a missed opportunity, too. In a world where little girls could really use an exemplar of feminine virtue, they got this slop. If you don't want to take my word for it, maybe this will serve as a clear warning. Supergirl has reportedly test screened more than 10 times. There have been 3 different endings shown in January 2026 alone, just a few months ago. The film reportedly had a runtime of 2 hours and 5 minutes without credits at that time. We now have an official runtime at 1 hour and 47 minutes, including credits, which can account for anywhere between 5 and 7 minutes. That means that in just the last 5 months, roughly 25 minutes of footage has been cut from Supergirl. Can I just go ahead and cut 1 hour and 46 minutes and 40 seconds out of that runtime and present you with the only thing that anybody cares about in this movie?
Now it's a party.
Put that on repeat and you'll have a better outcome than what we have in this new film. And here's one major reason why. Take a person who should be grateful for what they've been given and turn them into a cynical, cussing, obnoxious complainer, and you have the typical blue-haired, septum-pierced female studying dance theory in the Ivy Leagues and, unfortunately, Supergirl.
I played a few characters that might have a potential queer through line. I have many queer friends, so honestly, I'm kind of honored.
I have a theory when it comes to movies like this, and while it may be far-fetched when dealing with an unserious filmmaker like James Gunn, I think this movie suffers from a very bad thing called schadenfreude. If you're wondering, sincere viewer, what that might look like on film, behold. Supergirl follows Kara Zor-El, who has become a hardened, cynical traveler after witnessing the slow destruction of Krypton as a child. Unlike Superman, who grew up with loving parents on Earth, Kara remembers Krypton's horrors firsthand, making her far more emotionally scarred. One of the most memorable scenes from the trailer sums this up well. Kara, drunk off her behind, is passed out in her apartment, clearly tired from a day of sticking it to the patriarchy. And her dog Krypto takes a whiz on Superman's face on a newspaper. And if at this point you're not rolling your eyes and thinking, ah yes, the timeless story of an angsty anti-hero who wears their imperfections on their sleeve, where have we seen this before?
But wait! There's more!
Supergirl as a movie is neither good nor bad, and the character herself is kind of the same. She doesn't represent any moral fortitude, only anger and resentment. Rather than to appreciate morality, Supergirl spits in the face of authority, religion, and privilege because she's authentic and real.
Thanks for watching him, bitch!
In other words, Supergirl is an almost 2-hour-long movie about an insufferable brat who you really can't root for. The only redeeming quality of this girl is she meets an alien who needs help finding a man who murdered her father. And since Kara is a feminist anti-hero, she's willing to take a break from her typical avoidance of responsibility and cynical hatred of everything to hunt down the patriarchy. The rest of the movie acts as a kind of space western for ladies as the two hunt down Krim of the Yellow Hills. On her journey, she meets Lobo, the real star of the movie and the movie we all wish we were watching. Lobo is a space bounty hunter, of course, and if Warner Brothers was smart, would become the equivalent of Deadpool for the DC universe. And by that I mean in the same way that Ryan Reynolds donned the Green Lantern costume and then regretted it only to take on the role of his life in Deadpool, we are all hoping that we can look back on Aquaman as a thing of the past and actually look forward to something good from DC and Jason Momoa. However, if the past is any indication of the future, I'm sure they'll find a way to mess that up. And speaking of messing up, back to Supergirl. Supergirl finally hunts down the most uninteresting villain since the guy in Justice League, and she's faced with the decision to bring Krim to justice or to murder him. And honestly, by the time we've reached the end of the movie... And just to put icing on that cake, Millie, the star of Supergirl, decided to pound this nail in the coffin of her film before it even premiered. In this article by Variety, she is encouraged to just effing go for it. How Supergirl star Millie Alcock learned to ignore the trolls and become a punk rock superhero. And it's worth mentioning Hollywood actresses who make millions of dollars from billion-dollar studios aren't punk rock. They are the system, but nonetheless, Millie wanted to put the real baddies on blast by saying this. I guess women know this is just how it's always been, unfortunately. Alcock adds, and it's from a lot of people whose profiles have no photo, who are burner accounts, or someone's name and then data for Christian, which is hilarious to me. But I mean, whose opinion do you really care about? If you're pissing the right kind of people off, you're doing okay. Spoken like a true hero, Millie. Not only is she fighting for the studio and sticking it to the paying customer, she's also taking the bold and brave stance of criticizing Christians. How innovative and original.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
So let's get to why the message of this film matters, especially for parents who may be interested in watching this with their kids. While this movie has to have some silver lining or else it will suffer from being the most intolerable film in human history, even with Lobo to sweeten the pot, the problem here is that this lining isn't silver. It's more or less whatever you would consider below bronze. Yes, in the end, Supergirl realizes she can actually use her powers to help people rather than to make a mess, act irreverent, and cuss like a dude. But she never rejects the former to get to the latter. In other words, she never grows up. In fact, the message in this film is that growing up is kind of a tool of the patriarchy, and you don't need to do that, man. It's oppressive. Not to mention, it's also poorly written, unfunny, and uninspired, to name just a couple of things. And families looking for inspirational heroes, especially for their little girls, won't find it here. I mentioned Schadenfreude at the beginning because once you realize what it is, you can't unsee it in much of our modern entertainment from Hollywood. Schadenfreude is joy or self-satisfaction that comes from learning of or witnessing the troubles, failures, or humiliation of another person. If you've ever wondered where Hollywood's newfound adoration of making the villains misunderstood and the heroes morally conflicted, impotent, and broken, it comes from Marxist scholars like Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer. All of their work in Hollywood was part of the revolution to use mass-produced media to create a psychological environment where audiences take pleasure in the downfall of the privileged. Not only does this play out in this film through the truly unadmirable hero that Supergirl is, but also in this movie's deconstruction of Superman. It's honestly kind of sad that Gunn and other modern filmmakers can't bring joy to audiences through emotionally stirring content with a strong moral message without defecating all over it. It's like they're afraid of being serious for fear of actually creating something meaningful. And I can save any of you commenters with itchy trigger fingers. No, this does not mean you need to be over serious and pretentious in films. I'm just saying we don't need to be insufferable either. And speaking of insufferable, allow me to present you with one final critique. You know one thing that makes for horrible messaging in movies? Feminism.
I think because she doesn't live inside the binary of what we think a woman should be, that is what makes her so special and so exciting and so new.
I won't join the chorus of people mocking Alcock's looks. I'll just take the affirmative and say that Sydney Sweeney would be a much better option. I bring that up because Supergirl would have you believe that that's misogyny rather than the truth. And if there's one thing that feminists don't care about, it's the truth.
Yep.
If feminism was female equality and even female empowerment, that would be somewhat tolerable. But it isn't. For all of Hollywood and the rest of the political left, female empowerment is about erasing women by turning women into obnoxious, cussing, drinking ticks on the rear of society. I have a crazy idea. Maybe women don't have to act like men in order to be women. I know, wild.
As a woman.
What is that?
And one other little minor suggestion. Maybe, just maybe, we don't have a problem with women in society, but rather the message that Hollywood wants to send about women. But don't look to Hollywood to admit their foibles, especially during Pride Month.
Discussion online about Kara's queerness in the comments. Was that something that you explored when you were preparing for the role?
It wasn't, but in honor of Pride Month, as I'm getting all these questions, I don't know. I think that what makes this film so beautiful is that it's not centered around a man. It's not centered around love and war.
Well, there you have it. Even during Pride Month, she won't take the bait unless it's for man-bashing. Apparently, somebody didn't learn from Rachel Zegler.
And she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Stop it. Get some help.
God forbid we ever appreciate a female for her outward beauty and noble disposition without denigrating men to make herself feel better. I know I'm asking a lot here, but can we get a female icon who doesn't think being a man is the ultimate in female empowerment? Yes, I get it. Salty, foul-mouthed women with an attitude are awful and annoying, but I'd just like to point out one simple thing. They're also really annoying. But now I realize that everyone is probably laughing at me because Hollywood is far too gone down the feminist rabbit hole and has been for a while, which is why I have to mention you should go subscribe to Indie Thinker Plus, where you can find great Christian streaming content, including movies, documentaries, ebooks, audio podcasts, and more. And all you need to do is go to indiethinker.org/support. But more to the point, I think we're fine believing women can fly and beat men to a pulp if the underlying message is good. A fantasy world where north is south and up is down doesn't make any sense, and it pulls us out of the story. When it comes to the morals of this movie, on and off the screen, we get finger wagging from people who can't hold their marriages together, who think men can be women, and have no issue mocking Christians while never saying a thing about Islam and their oppressive tendencies toward women and children.
Weird.
In other words, give us movies about the good, the true, and the beautiful, and we can stomach female superhero movies with a redemption arc. Use them for an agenda that only lies and gaslights the public, and all I can say is we can turn on CNN anytime to be lied to. We don't have to pay you for it. Unlike Jennifer Lawrence, we're all aware of the fact that female action stars have existed for a while. In fact, my generation produced one of the biggest film franchises in movie history, and while Arnold is the main draw, arguably the main protagonist in this film is a woman. Well, sort of. Our problem with movies like Supergirl is that it gives us woke morals in the form of another lecture from a bunch of people with the moral backbone of a bowl of Jell-O. For my money, I'd rather beat my head against a wall. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, click this other video on the screen, which will be sure to fascinate you. Don't forget to subscribe before you go, but most importantly, go with God.